This show is part of the RetroZap.com podcast network.
I have absolutely no idea what happened in the last episode of Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels. So, let's jog my memory.
As is tradition with a new Star Wars movie, Vanity Fair has released a preview featuring photographs by Annie Leibovitz, and that is accompanied by an article from Les Grossman. This week, we are taking a look at the revelations about the Rise of Skywalker from the article and what we learned about the upcoming film. So this article just happened to get released the same day I was writing notes for a completely different topic for this episode. But as soon as I saw this, I was like, I knew what we had to talk about. And, you know, the three of us have kind of traded a few texts offline, and we've been excited about it. So I can't wait to talk about it.
But I'm so unprepared because I did all my preparation on the other topic. So I'm just going to, seat of my pants here, Scoundrels.
Well, just wait till June sometime, because Taxus is going to blow us all away. But let's just start kind of the beginning. Overall, the article that Lev Grossman wrote, a lot of it is stuff that we as diehard Star Wars fans already knew. Because it's not just about the Rise of Skywalker, it's about kind of the history of how Star Wars was made.
And he was at Star Wars Celebration. It's like, okay, Lev, so were we.
Yes, you and 64,999 other people, Lev. But he put out a fine article. I won't disparage it.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. I've been holding off discussing this for weeks now because all three of us have not been on the show for a while.
Huh.
But we've officially crossed our 3rd anniversary of Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels. That happened at the end of April. And so here we are.
I'd like to thank me again, because I meant to thank me in the very beginning before Bogan. Sorry, Bogan.
And the band just started playing you off there.
Wait. Space mentalism.
Welcome back, Scoundrel Nation. Here's what is in store for this week's show. Jedi Fallen Order is headed to gaming consoles this fall, and gamers got some new glimpses of what is in store recently. We'll discuss that in this week's news. Speaking of the Jedi Lost and Master and Apprentice debuted in the weeks of and following Star Wars Celebration. We'll share our thoughts and reviews in the Hyperthetical segment. We haven't had a Silence Fool segment in a few weeks, but that changes with this episode. We have plenty of shout-outs to get to. We hope you're having a fun summer full of Star Wars. Thanks for joining us for episode 81 of Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels.
It's not a long time ago. It's not in a galaxy far, far away. It's right here, right now. Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels. The source for Star Wars news and discussions with your hosts, Dennis Keithley.
Truly, you have a dizzying intellect.
Jay Krebs.
Yeah, but it's custom. It's custom faded?
And Darth Taxus. Get ready for fast-flying, saber-swinging, hot space opinions from your hosts, analysis, and other stuff, fun stuff. I'm not your host. I'm just a generic, unpaid announcer.
Thanks, Mario.
Watch your tone of voice with us, Scoundrels. You've returned to the podcast that respects their elders. Well, when we can find one. I'm the Jed Nelson of the Dark Side and co-host, Darth Taxus, coming to you from the Summer School Re-Education Center of my flagship, the Assessor Collector. And with me are my co-hosts and teachers' pets, Dennis the Phantom Menace Keithley and Jay the Hut Jared Krebs. Dennis and Jay?
Don't you forget about me. Hey, I am the teacher. And I am on summer break, so I'm amazing. Jay Krebs here. How are you doing, Scoundrels? How are you doing, Dennis?
I am doing well. This has been a very active and busy summer so far. And as I mentioned last time, I'm fresh off a vacation and, haven't had near as much Star Wars in my life the past few weeks. So I'm excited to dive into one of our regular episodes, which we have not done for a long time.
Yeah.
So we've had plenty of Scoundrel special editions, but our schedules just haven't meshed so that we could get something regular out. So this will be exciting. But hey, what have you guys been up to with Star Wars lately, Jay?
Well, I did start Alphabet Squadron, and I mentioned on the last special edition that I'm really, really liking it. I didn't expect to like it as much as I do, which sounds awful, but I really do. I really like it a lot, and so I'm kind of getting into that, and that's pretty much right now about it as far as Star Wars goes, and just kind of soaking in as much summer as possible and kind of getting it when I can as far as Star Wars goes. But, it's all good.
Oh. How about you, Taxus?
I completely forgot about that Alphabet Squadron thing. Actually, I need to order that. But, Star Wars. We started watching the movies 'cause for some reason my kids wanted to rewatch them again, which is always okay with me. Other than that, I had a weird rash that looked like Luke Skywalker in his X-Wing helmet.
So gross.
Well, when I was on my cruise, the ship actually had a Star Wars channel on it.
Oh, wow.
And so I was catching a few minutes of Solo or a few minutes of Rogue One, The Last Jedi, and The Force Awakens here and there when we'd be back in the room for whatever. And they also had a Marvel channel, so they had all the movies there. But it was a Disney ship, so they had all their properties had their own channels, which is kind of cool. I mean, we didn't spend a whole lot of time in our cabin, but when we were there getting ready for dinner or whatever, one of those channels would inevitably be on. So it was fun.
That's awesome.
Kind of how I got my Star Wars fix over vacation. But so have you guys been following any of the festivities going around the opening of Galaxy's Edge in Anaheim?
So I think there's a giant Millennium Falcon.
Yes, there is indeed.
A lot of people took pictures of that.
That's true too. How about you, Jay?
I've been seeing so much of it, of course, on everyone's feeds, and I'm so excited for the people that get to go. And I don't know, maybe it's maybe I'm a little envious, maybe I'm a little jealous, I don't know, but I'm kind of trying to avoid it as much as possible. Some of the things I've enjoyed seeing, but I don't want to pull back the curtain too much. I was actually more excited. We went to see Aladdin in the theater last weekend, and one of the quote unquote previews was for Galaxy's Edge.
Oh, wow.
And so that was actually, for me anyways, just enough. Like if I could have just seen that would have gotten me so super excited to maybe someday go. But I don't want to sound like a damp blanket or anything and try to discount anyone else's fun and experiences that they've had, because it's awesome. I mean, it's just absolutely awesome. But I want to immerse myself in it if and when I get a chance, and I don't want to know too much. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I haven't been avoiding the coverage, but I also haven't been seeking it out. So if something pops up, if something's been pops up on social media, I'm like, okay, that's great. But if I'm told that there's going to be like an in-depth discussion of what the Smuggler's Run mission is, then I'll just avoid that. But, our friend Dan Zare over at Coffee with Kenobi, he got to go out there and do the press opening and the early opening. And so he's had a lot of great coverage on his show, which I've listened to. And it's been nice because he has, he's giving you some information. He's made sure not to spoil the whole experience. So if you just kind of want to get an idea about some of the food and stuff like that, then I'd check that one out. But
I'm going to go on a day when there's no kids, because the strollers won't be there. And that one picture I saw totally takes you out of the feeling. You know what I mean?
Yeah. As if everyone's backpacks and t-shirts and high top sneakers and everything else isn't going to do the same thing. But, sure. That'll be a fun day. I'm kind of hoping that next year at Celebration, they'll have like a Galactic Nights event, kind of like they did at Celebration Orlando, and have a special event over there, which might be a fun way to get over to see it with smaller crowds. But who knows? That's just me.
Well,
hoping. We'll
as
see.
A social influencer that I am threatening that I will go there unless they pay me not to.
Oh.
Because that's what I do. I influence.
You call it something new every time. But speaking of Celebration, this is old news because by the time that this episode comes out, tickets will have been on sale for a few days. But if you have not checked out the price of tickets, they were announced. And the 4-day adult pass, it comes in at $195 in advance, or $205 at the door, which is kind of cute because the 5-day passes to Chicago were gone, what, 6 or 7 months before Celebration.
Yep.
Right.
And that may be a conservative estimate. 1 day passes are $75 in advance, $85 at the door. 4 day kids are $70 and $80 in advance and at the door, respectively. And kids are 6 to 12. Under 6, I believe, get in free. A kid's 1 day pass is $35 in advance, $45 at the door. And then the Jedi Master VIP package is $900. So, yeah, I mean, you get that private lounge, you get advanced access to, you don't have to worry about the app and signing up for the lotteries and
that's nice.
That type of thing. But, but it does come with an expense. I do know people that were saving for that right after the last Celebration. And
good luck.
Well, yeah, good luck, because they only have a limited amount of those, and they go out. They sell out within the first couple minutes. When I bought my tickets for Orlando and Chicago, by the time I got through the queue, they were gone. I wasn't going to buy one, but they were gone. So may the Force be with you if you want to get the Jedi VIP package. But
I think I need to package the Celebration experience with me. That's what I think I need to do. Start offering that. Start monetizing.
You did that in Chicago with your roommates. Yes.
Oh.
And if they need references, they can look up Lando Griffin and Junker Jawa, and
because they are unfluenced.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we got a little bit of news and a lot of discussion to get to, so let's get to it. Well, outside of Galaxy's Edge opening and the Celebration dates, there hasn't been a lot of news lately in Star Wars, but we did find out quite a bit about something coming this fall. So, Jay, fill us in.
All right. Well, coming this fall, Respawn debuted the Jedi Fallen Order trailer from the EA Play event. The 2-minute trailer reveals the player character, Padawan Cal Kestis, as they infiltrate an AT-AT on Kashyyyk and attack Imperial pilots before Saw Gerrera drops in to see what's going on. The game from Respawn is set to debut on November 15th for the PC, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One. So I know Colby One showed me this trailer, and it is, when I saw Gerrera, my jaw dropped open, because we didn't get that at Celebration, did we?
No, he was
okay.
Did not see Saw.
The trailer at Celebration was much more about the hiding from the Empire part of the story. This trailer looks like it's much more mid-game, when he's kind of gotten back into the swing of being a Jedi and has lightsaber again. Mm-hmm. And I did not attend that panel at Celebration, and I didn't really know any details much beyond that trailer about the game. But this is cool. They got Forrest Whitaker to do Saw's voice again, so that was pretty. And I don't know, I was just watching that one. You got the AT-ATs marching through the swamp, and they got all that moss and branches and leaves and stuff hanging off them, and then Cal gets his way into the AT-AT and then starts shooting things. I don't know, it was very cool. I'm very excited for this.
And Cal is adorable. Can I just say he actually reminds me a lot of Colby Wan, just in the way that he looks. With his button nose and the way his hair is and everything like that. But yeah, it's really super cool. I was mesmerized by this. The graphics look amazing, and the game, there's some gameplay footage of the player fighting stormtroopers with a lightsaber. There's the sidekick droid slicing a terminal as a purge trooper fights partisans or rebels. We're not really sure which, but yeah, and then there's even a K2 droid in there too. Hello.
Yeah, did you watch the gameplay trailer, guys?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, that was even more impressive, I thought. Mm-hmm. The demonstration, all the different force powers, a lot of force pulling and force pushing. That force echo, he walked up to that stormtrooper and he could kind of sense the stormtrooper's last few thoughts before he died.
Yeah.
And then right after that, he gets attacked.
Creepy.
And then he gets attacked by a sword. His force powers remind me a lot of Kylo Ren. The way he was like,
good call.
pulling troopers over to him with the Force so he could like stab them, like the way he dragged Kylo dragged that one First Order officer over by his neck to the Force. And then he has that move where he kind of freezes his opponent in the blaster shot so he can avoid them.
That's cool.
Yeah, so that was pretty neat. And then you have lots of Wookiees there in Kashyyyk.
Yes.
One looked kind of like Chewbacca, but I don't think that's supposed to be Chewbacca.
What are you trying to say, Dennis?
I just don't think they're blending Chewbacca at this time period with somewhere that Saw Gerrera is.
Right.
Okay. So that's what I'm trying to say.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
But I know
because they all kind of look alike.
No, this one specifically looks like Chewbacca as opposed to like Tarful.
Okay.
Yes.
But
I'm just saying I was told that. So.
Okay. Well, Jay, I know your boys are gamers, and this will be something that's probably on their list. But Taxus, are you interested in this one, or what do you think?
Yeah, we'll probably get this for the Playbox 1.
Playbox.
I don't know. I'm trying to remember what we got. Oh yeah, the PlayStation. I think they've got that. You can tell how long it's been since I played on it. So yeah, we'll probably end up getting that because we took a look at it and it seems it kind of reminds me of Dark Forces a little bit. It reminds me of kind of a blend between that and the campaign mode from Battlefront 2. Okay, yeah.
And his little droid, I don't know what the droid's name is, and it reminds me an awful lot of Iden Versio's droid that would pop off and slice things or, give her a sensor reading of where everyone was, but it seemed to be some similar gameplay there.
Well, I'm hoping that I can actually maybe master some of the gameplay with this one because I'm horrible with Battlefront 2. I really am, but I just like watching it. But it's so funny because, with you were saying your Playbox kind of thing, but I know my older son, he has a PlayStation 4 and Colby One has an Xbox One. And it's just so funny because even though they're only 2 years apart, there's a very marked preference by age group of which kid, wanted which console. And I wasn't quite sure why, but yeah, all of their friends, like my older son's friends, they all wanted the PlayStation, and then my younger son's friends all wanted the Xbox, and I could never figure that out. But
so know what I hate about these things? I hate the controllers. That's why on both of them. That's why I'm terrible at them. Like the little thumb joystick, and it's like, okay, well, you push the joystick button down. Okay, I pushed the joystick button down. No, you went down, then pushed the button in. I'm like, oh, okay. That's why I kind of liked PCs, because I just had like a rollerball mouse, and that sucker was super accurate. You know what I mean? I could just stop it on a dime, and targeting was way better than this whole, like, spray and pray kind of thing that I end up doing when I'm using one of the, one of those game controllers. Plus, I start to cramp up really bad after a while.
So we've learned that Taxus is an old fogey gamer here.
I am.
The other thing, but we also got the art. So Taxus, tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, I'll tell you all about the art. The artwork for Jedi Fallen Order was also recently revealed at the EA Play event. The art features Cal. Obviously, somebody forgot to get his glasses. With his blue lightsaber, an Inquisitor with not the blue lightsaber, Purge Troopers, and the Binge Troopers, Cal's droid, his ship AT-ATs and AT-STs, and an alien named Grease. So yeah, I kind of like this. I mean, it's kind of got the, it's kind of like bifurcating the image from like kind of a light side, dark side thing,
Yeah.
And
except for the AT-ATs are on both sides.
Yeah.
But then it's also got his mentor, Sayre, who we come to find out in another story coming up is a former Jedi as well. But and I guess that's supposed to be the second sister from the Inquisitors.
Okay.
That's in this game. But we got to look at the Purge Trooper in action during the gameplay footage trailer that they had, and I really liked it because they have the same little shock weapon that the Magna droids had from Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, that was cool.
And I don't know. This is I was initially not really excited about a game that seemed to be trying to replicate Kanan Jarrus.
Sure. Yeah.
But it seems to be enough of a different character And we know there's plenty of Jedi that survived Order 66, but the whole, the Padawan that survived, whatever. But this doesn't seem to be a Padawan that kind of has the same type of self-loathing that Kanan went through when he first escaped Order 66.
It's kind of got a dark look to him, the way they're kind of showing him here.
Yeah, the robes they've got there. It looks like those are much more like a self-made robe with whatever he had, as opposed to the traditional Jedi garb. And
trash bags.
Well, it's probably a lot easier to get around when you're not wearing Jedi robes and half the galaxy's wanting to kill you for doing so.
Sure, yeah. So. Yeah, but
And go ahead.
What?
I was just going to say he has one glove.
Huh.
Do you notice that?
Is that kind of an homage to the King of Pop, or?
Well, because we know of a lot of our Jedi and such losing a hand here and there. So I'm wondering if that has anything to do with that, or if that's just kind of a design choice on the part of the costumiers. But
you might be right. I mean, it could have been an industrial accident.
Well, it could be he's doing the whole Princess Bride thing where he was left-handed and then he's not.
Sure. I was thinking that too. Yeah, that's weird.
Because he's holding the lightsaber in his right hand, he's got the glove on his left. But
I read an article where EA said they basically had to talk and convince Lucas Arts, whoever's doing this now. I don't know the name of the companies anymore, but they were like, they had to convince them to let them do a story with the Jedi, and because I think there was the feeling like, it's the dark times. There really shouldn't be a whole bunch of lightsaber action going around,
Sure.
So I only read half the story though, so I don't know how it concluded. Hey, what's that rune stuff in the background?
The what?
Look in the background.
I don't know. The story I read about the art didn't say anything about it, and it's not really in any of the trailers that I've watched either. Was
that from Rebels?
It looks very World Between Worlds to me.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see.
Huh.
I like his ship, which is up in that left corner as well.
It's like a weird B-wing looking. Well, it's not. I mean, but it's weird. Yeah,
it does kind of look like a B-wing.
Yeah, Doug Chang actually had a lot to do with the design of the elements in this game.
All right.
So that
makes
me
excited too.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if there's any connectivity, to the main storylines and stuff, because that's one of the things I always take away from it.
Well, let's get to our last story that's related to Fallen Order. In addition to the video game, Jedi Fallen Order is getting a prequel comic from Marvel. Ooh. The summary from Marvel reads, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order Dark Temple, a 5-issue Marvel miniseries that will lead into the highly anticipated game from Respawn Entertainment and Lucasfilm, was revealed today. Written by Matthew Rosenberg, who's written Uncanny X-Men and The Punisher, and illustrated by Paolo Villanelli, who is one of the illustrators on the recently concluded Vader Dark Visions miniseries. The tale follows Jedi Master Eno Cordova and his impulsive Padawan Ser Junda, who we all know is going to be Cal's mentor, on an seemingly simple mission that becomes much more dangerous. The Jedi Council sends the pair to the remote planet, and I'm taking a stab at this, on Tutho, to oversee the excavation of a mysterious temple.
That's very Shakespearean.
Dueling forces of a local resistance and ruthless security troops clash in a war for the fate of the planet, with the Jedi caught in the middle.
Those Jedi, they're always caught in the middle.
Whether it was Anakin and Obi-Wan and Anakin, the comic, or any number of instances, it always seems like the Jedi find themselves stuck in the middle of some war. They revealed the cover, which has got Sarah in the background and an older guy in the Jedi in the foreground.
Yeah, it's
deflecting laser blasts
and
stuff. So. Kind of.
Bald Q.
But so that's something to look forward to this fall. But
cool.
Yeah. All right then. Well, that'll do it for this week's news. For more on these stories and others, check out Jedi News, Fan of the Tracks, RetroZap, Coffee with Kenobi, TheForce.net, and of course, StarWars.com.
I see some runes in his bald head reflection.
For this week's Hyperthetical, we are taking a look at 2 different pieces of Star Wars content. The first is Jedi Lost, which is the audio drama written by Cavan Scott. The second is the novel Master and Apprentice by Claudia Gray. Although these are two distinct stories presented in different formats, they are very complementary as they tell tales of the Jedi that predate the prequels. And that's really why we're kind of discussing them together, because the first one is about really is the story of Dooku's fall to the dark side, but it follows his history as a Padawan, how he became a Jedi Knight, eventually a Jedi Master in his own right, and then left the Order. And the second is about Master and Apprentice, is about Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon and their relationship as Master and Apprentice, and how they kind of went through a rough patch. And they have some common characters between them as well. But let's kind of tackle Jedi Lost first. Taxus, go ahead and sound the spoiler alert. This is gonna be a very spoiler-filled discussion. And going into this, there's just no way we can get to everything in these two pieces of content, because we'll be here for 3 episodes trying to do so. But real quick, like I just said, this story is about how Dooku rose to the Jedi Order and then ultimately decided to leave it. In quick, 60 seconds or less. Jay, what did you think about it overall?
Overall, I absolutely loved this. It was kind of a distinct break from some of the other books that we've had. Obviously, this is more of like a radio drama type thing where we had a full cast, a lot of really, really talented speakers in this one, a lot of talented characters, and it really did a lot for kind of sating my curiosity as to where did Dooku go, like what made him do this, and just a little bit more of an insight to the person that he was and his upbringing and the way that he was as a Jedi, and again why he left, and just seeing it through Asajj's eyes was just so great. And there were so many little things in here too that we'll get to with different characters that gave us glimpses into different things that happened in the prequels, things that never happened that maybe should have, and and the list just kind of goes on, and my brain is going in a bazillion different directions. So I can't wait to talk about this more in depth. But overall, I gobbled this up as soon as I possibly could. And I can't wait for the physical copy to come out on October 3rd. Taxus, how about you?
Oh, funny thing, full disclosure. Somehow I screwed up ordering it, and I ended up downloading Steel Magnolias.
What?
So I'm ready to talk about the women's relationships and the challenges that they faced and overcame together. But other than that, I'd like to listen to you guys talk about this, because I didn't get a chance to hear it.
Oh my goodness, you're missing out, dude.
I know, I really am. I mean, basically, it's kind of complicated, the setup we have, and so I don't know. I completely forgot to pursue it, and kind of got sucked into other things, like finishing the other book. So I'm ready to talk about that one.
Okay.
But go ahead.
Well, you're going to get spoiled here.
You know what? You know my policy. I don't care. So spoil away.
All right. Well, you sit put for a little while then, while we go over this. But as you were alluding to, Jay, this whole thing is kind of framed, well, it isn't kind of framed. It is framed by Asajj Ventress's hunt for Dooku's sister. She is. I don't know that we have. I can't remember if they gave us an exact time frame about when this takes place, but Dooku has tasked her, I guess, relatively early on in her apprenticeship to him, with tracking Jenza, his sister, down. And to help her in her search, he gives her a bunch of holos and other notes to dive into. And it's very revealing. It dives into Dooku's entire history here. Like I said, from the time he was a Padawan to when he left the Order. We have him as a Padawan, we have him as a knight, we have him as Qui-Gon's master. Was there a particular era from this novel of Dooku's life that you found the most compelling?
Oh, I really enjoyed basically when he was having the holo connection with the communicator between he and his sister, and the struggles that he was going through with, basically trying to keep this attachment secret and moving forward with his training as a Jedi. And also I loved the part too where he became Yoda's apprentice instead of being with Master Castana, who he really wanted to be with. And, we'll get into that whole storyline here in just a second. But But I love Master Kastana too, so I can't wait to talk about her just a little bit more. But young Dooku, like super young Dooku in the Crush was kind of annoying, I'm not going to lie. But you can also still see glimpses of that regalness that he's always had about him. But yeah, it was kind of neat to see him as an adolescent and kind of, messing around with Sifo-Dyas and his other buddies in the Crush. And, how about you?
That period seemed, a lot of it seemed like a Harry Potter story, because he was in the Hawk Bat clan, I was like, okay, so they have, I can't remember what the others were, but when they were saying which clans they were all in or got picked for during that time of their lives, I was thinking, okay, Gryffindor, Ravenclaw, Slytherin, okay, show. But I enjoyed that part, and I felt like a lot of that was really just set up for the second and third act of the story. When because he gets introduced to his long lost relatives from Sereno, which include Jinza, his father and brother, and then they have that event in the temple on Sereno where he's discovered Jinza and they're off exploring together after he saved her, or they helped each other defend themselves from some bullies, and because he's there for a fair. But they go to this temple and they kind of awaken this mythological dragon that's beneath the surface, which causes the temple to cave in. And then, afterwards they start that relationship that you're saying. And that is a key defining moment of his life, because that is the attachment that brings him back to Sereno again later in his life and helps him see the deficiencies in the Jedi Order and the Republic when it comes to the decisions they make about who they are and they aren't going to help, and ultimately comes to the conclusion that he needs to leave the Order and fulfill the role as Count of Sereno. But yeah, so let's talk a little bit about this, attachment to, because he kind of has two. We've talked about Jinza a little bit, but then you've also alluded to the other one with Costanza there. So I know you're fond of her, so give us a little bit more reason why.
Well, Master Kastana she was basically a lot like Jocasta Nu in a lot of ways. She was the head of some of the archives and that type of thing. She studied a lot of the Sith relics. And so she was of the mind that the Padawans, they needed to learn this stuff. There's no sense in hiding this from them. And that, she said the Sith will come again, and the prophecies, and she was into the prophecies too, which of course, we know plays a big role in Master and Apprentice as well. And she came right out and told Yoda, I think they need to learn this. They need to be aware of what happened in the past, so that they can learn to recognize it, and so that they can learn to combat against it if it ever does happen again. And Yoda was just like, no, happen, this will not. He's just like basically saying, just put this aside. Let's sweep this under the rug. And it's just so typical Yoda. And the more and more, we think about the downfall of the Jedi, it was, again, all of these little things that, weren't being acknowledged that ended up, festering. And, just like if you don't take care of something and you're not preemptive about it. And that was one of the reasons that I absolutely loved her, was just because she was willing to recognize this and, not hide it from these Padawans. And of course, Yoda didn't like that. And I loved how she called him a little gremlin. I thought that was hilarious. Yeah. And she eventually, of course, she becomes Sifo-Dyas's master.
Let me interrupt you for just a
go ahead.
There.
No, yeah, please do.
Refresh my memory, because the expectation was that she was going to become Dooku's master. And then the big surprise at the ceremony when all the Jedi Masters were picking their apprentices, she picked Sifo-Dyas, and then Yoda stunned everyone as the Grand Master of the Order, taking a Padawan there when he picked Dooku at the very end, because Dooku was the only one left that hadn't been assigned. Did they tell us the reason why she picked Sifo-Dyas? I can't remember.
I don't think so. It was just, like you said, it was kind of a big surprise, because it was one of those things where you just sort of assumed that she was going to pick Dooku after their exchange in the relics, when they snuck in to try to find out about some of the stuff. And even the way that she tested him, Dooku, with should you call me Dark Lord or Dark Lady, and was trying to like bring out some of these feelings in him and almost training him at that point. So, but I don't think they ever came right out and said it, and I may have missed it too.
Yeah, I don't think both of us did. But I remember, of course, we knew that Yoda became Dooku's master because we've seen Attack of the Clones. Mm-hmm. But this passing over Dooku by all the masters, that's what surprised me, because we didn't know that part going into the story. Mm-hmm. And he kind of, going back to that Harry Potter analogy, he was kind of a Harry Potter type figure. He excelled at a bunch of things and was good in the dueling ring, and he had a rivalry with one of the other students that kind of again reminded me of Harry and Draco. Very, very interesting parallel there, although I don't think that's quite what Cavan Scott had in mind when he wrote this part of the book, or the radio drama there. But eventually Kastana takes Sifo and Dooku on a mission elsewhere, where they kind of get into some dark stuff. You want to fill us in on a little bit on that?
Well, are you referring to the part where why don't you go ahead, because I'm not sure which one you're talking about, so you go ahead.
Well, they go off on a mission and Dooku essentially has to sneak off. They sneak away. They kind of give everyone an impression that they're doing something different, and then they ultimately get captured. And Sifo is having these weird visions. And then they all kind of start having them, and they're seeing glimpses of the future through the Force. We're hearing lines from various other Star Wars stories that come later, and he ultimately ends up using Force lightning to defeat their kidnappers and free themselves.
Yes, and that was when Sifo Dyas, he was basically compelled by all of these visions, and Kastana had to basically talk him down from all of these and bring him back to reality. And they even went to Yoda and said, hey, this is what he's seeing. These are visions. And Yoda said, be careful with these. We should, and not believe that, he basically was saying, no, let's not even put any stock in this. But it was obviously taking a toll physically, emotionally, and mentally on Sifo Dyas. Mm-hmm. And Yoda just wasn't listening to it. But yeah, the whole, the lightning thing, it was almost as if Dooku couldn't even hold himself back from using it until he got almost to a breaking point.
Mandatory drug testing, you shall all.
Yeah, that's kind of a common thing with Dooku as the story goes on. Now, I know you said you listened to this twice. Is that correct?
I didn't get to listen to. I listened to Master and Apprentice twice. I didn't get to listen to the entire this one twice.
Yeah, I know, because we were talking about this offline before we started the conversation, and this is part of the story that I felt could have benefited from being a traditional book narrative, because I kind of got confused when they were experiencing all these different visions and stuff like that. They were having to resort to a lot of theatrical tricks when you're like on a stage, and you can't take advantage of a lot of props and stuff to try and explain what was happening there. But frequently when Sifo Dyas was suffering from visions and stuff like that, it was not always clear to me what was going on with him. And this part of the book I thought was a little difficult to follow. But again, it's kind of foreshadowing what's going to happen later in the book. So before we get to the portion of the book where Count Dooku returns to Sereno at his sister's invitation to kind of help clean things up there, did you have any other parts of the book you want to discuss first? When he originally went back to Sereno for this fair, and he was in the temple with Jenza, and basically this dragon sort of called to him through the Force, and he became in this trance. And Jenza was like, oh, don't touch it, it's bad luck. And then as soon as he did, the entire temple just kind of crumbled down around them. Was huge, because that's when he found out that Jenza was his sister. He knew some sort of a familiarity was there, and he sensed it, as you said, when they were running away from the bullies. And so when his father and his mom showed up on scene,
And Yoda was talking to his father, Dooku's father, and he says, he is not my son, and then all of a sudden just this rush of acknowledgement rushes over Dooku, and he's like, oh my gosh, this is my family. Mm-hmm. Why the heck did they take him back to Sereno, knowing, Yoda obviously knew that he was from this royal family, and of all of the younglings to take along to this fair on Sereno, why?
Tell the story. I must.
That's a fair point. If I were to
see what you did there.
Okay.
A fair point. I get it.
Jeez, what was I going to say? Okay. Sorry. If I were to try and get inside the head of the Jedi Council, I think my reasoning might be this. If we tell him he can't go, but we're letting other Padawans go or younglings go, the question becomes why. And the excuse, because the Jedi Council said so, only goes so far. What happens in 10 years when he's a Jedi Knight and he says there's some mission to Sereno and the Council tells him he can't go? Well, blind obedience only goes so far, as we've seen with so many Jedi. And it seems to me that this is something he's going to find. A lot of the Jedi knew where they came from eventually, what planets they were from. The various, a lot of the humans are from lots of different planets, but a lot of the races, they come from specific worlds. The options are very small, so they're going to know. So I don't know that this is necessarily something that they could have kept from him indefinitely, that eventually he was going to find out. And maybe it was we'll take him there. The odds of him running into his family at the fair seem slim. And quite frankly, if his brother and sister hadn't kind of ran away from their nanny droid, he may not have run into them at all. And so it was a lot of chances that piled up on each other to make that possible.
That's a good point.
That would be the reason I would, it's not specifically stated, but that would be the one I would kind of conjure in that circumstance there. But but that dragon that you mentioned, that foreshadows the end of the book. I guess one of the things to discuss is, during this time, Dooku becomes a knight, he becomes master, he takes Qui-Gon as an apprentice. And I was really glad that Jonathan Davis got to do his voice there, because he did such a good job with that in the audio version of Master and Apprentice, which we'll get to in a bit. But I kind of liked seeing Qui-Gon as a Padawan in this book. And we also had Dooku's first Padawan, Rael Averross, who becomes a very key player in Master and Apprentice later that was there. Did any other characters stick out to you?
Not really. Other than, of course, Asajj herself, which I know we'll probably talk more about, and her whole experience with her former master being in her head. That's the other big thing for me. But the Ramil, his relationship with his brother Ramil. Obviously Ramil hated him because he was always being compared to him, especially by Jenza after everything had happened. But other than other characters, no, not other than Asajj.
Yeah. So. Well, let's go ahead and talk about Asajj real quick then before we get to the conclusion of this, because she is haunted by the spirit of her dead master, or it's all in her head. Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank on this guy's name.
Kai Narek.
There we go. Thank you, Kai Narek. And that was her Jedi Master before he died on Rat Attack in her arms. Mm-hmm. And then she was abandoned, kind of left on that planet. And that's when she started sinking into the dark side and swore vengeance against the Jedi. What do you think? Was he really there as a Force ghost type of a thing, or was she imagining all this?
I would tend to think it was more of a conscience, because there was a couple of times where she even says to Kai, and you weren't even there, but yet he has these very specific details of what was going on at the time or where they happened to be. So I think it's more of a conscience than anything else. But it did serve to give us a little bit more of an insight to her relationship with him when she was a Padawan. and how it affected her when he died. And I never knew, too, that the Night Sisters were the ones that gave her up to fight as a gladiator in an arena on Rat Attack.
Yeah.
So why, do you have any idea why the Night Sisters did that to her? Was it because she became a Jedi?
I don't know the reason, but it seems like they were always giving up their children for things. You know, they turned over Darth, Maul over to Sidious. And then later, Savage Opress was turned over to Count Dooku. So it seems kind of a very old, medieval, ancient way of cementing alliances. And, or if, they've lost some sort of a battle, it's like, okay, we give you someone from our tribe in order to ensure the peace type of a thing. So I don't know the specific reason, but that's what it reminded me of.
Yeah, because her whole MO was, after Kai was killed, was to go out and get vengeance on all of these people. And then she got scooped up and she was thrown into this arena and this Osika Kursk was her master. And Dooku actually ended up killing him and then, taking her. So Dooku must have been looking for someone to fit the assassin role. And she was the one that he found. Is that kind of where we're led to understand?
Yeah. That was my understanding of it. Well, let's get to the conclusion of the story so we can turn to Master and Apprentice here, because we'll be getting about halfway point there. But so Jinza pleads with Dooku to come back to Sereno and fix things that are going on there. And so he does. And to make a long story short, at the end of it, you'll have to refresh me exactly what happened, but he kind of awakens this dragon, which comes out and takes out his brother's forces. But ultimately he pushes the dragon too far, and then he has to put it down. Right. And then at that point, Dooku leaves the Jedi Order and assumes the role of Count of Sereno. So he's Count Dooku now. And then the story concludes with him ordering Asajj to kill Jinza after she's finally found her and rescued her from the predicament that she's been in. So I'm just going to go ahead and let you give us your thoughts on that conclusion. I mean, I liked it quite a bit. I thought it was a really interesting tale that was kind of, again, foreshadowing the dark place that he ends up in his life. And we built that over the course of the story. And so it was a very fitting end. And ultimately, he did have Asajj get rid of that one last attachment that he had that could kind of be used against him. So what did you think?
I honestly did not see that happening with Jinza. I did not see him having Asajj kill her. But I do love how all of these events unfolded from the time that he went back to Sereno and to his mother's funeral, and then the whole thing with Ramil, and how he had to, like you said, he had to basically overcome this dragon, this Terataka, I think is what it was called. And but what he realized was that he was able to get into the Terataka's mind, and the whole thing was that it was upset about being awoken from its centuries-old slumber, because it had been put into this trance, into this temple as a way to basically put it into a coma, and it responded to Dooku. So it was responding to his, almost like his dark side energies. And so in order to defeat it, then of course he kind of put it out of its misery, because it was miserable at that point, being woken up. But it was a really interesting insight to, why did Dooku leave? He felt like he was the only one that could really rule Sereno in a proper way, to be able to save it economically, from itself, basically, because of Ramil. And so it was for a very noble cause that he left. And that was the whole thing about the Lost 20 and why the different Jedi left the Order, and Yoda kind of explaining, well, some left to teach and some left to do this or some left to do that. And he saw all of them as a personal failure, that, they left because we didn't do enough to keep them. So, I thought that was an interesting way to put that. But yeah, I was actually really surprised that he had Jenza killed. But I suppose that was probably Asajj's first true assassination as his apprentice as well, correct?
I don't know. See, that's the thing, is I'm not exactly certain when this takes place and how long she's been in his service and what she's had to do for him so far.
Yeah.
But I did enjoy her story. The thing, when she finally was honing in on where Jenza was, the tricks that she pulled to finally put that together. And Cavan Scott did a really great job writing that part. And so was well acted. But let's go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, let's go ahead and welcome Darth Taxus back to the discussion as we turn to Master and Apprentice.
Well, there's one more. Hey, wake up there, bud. There's one more thing, though, I have to say about Asajj. I think it was brilliantly done because you kind of got the feeling of all of the different Asajj Ventress, I guess, personas in one. I felt a little bit of Clone Wars Asajj in there with some of her flirting and even with Dark Disciple, when she was talking about using her hips to her advantage. That was kind of, like in Dark Disciple and her flirtatious self. And then you also had a little bit of the Tartakovsky Asajj in there too, with the whole arena and just the feeling that you got from that. And even, a little bit of other Clone Wars feels as well. So I think that it was kind of the full gamut of Asajj. But Taxus, you'll appreciate this one. The Sith relics was known as the Bogan Collection.
Oh,
the dark side. Yeah. When Sifo Dyas and Dooku were sneaking in to take a look at things.
Yeah, available now for 3 easy payments of $99.95.
That's right, or your soul.
Yeah, was one of them a commemorative plate?
Yeah, it was like a coin. I don't know. They skimped out a bit.
Okay. Yeah. Tell me you find $1. That's what. The
there you go.
$1.
There you go. So, Master and Apprentice. Here we go.
Yeah, I'm back, everybody.
So, this story is a Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan story for the most part, and it's a discussion or a tale of how they were summoned to the planet Pyjal by Count Dooku's earlier Padawan, Rael Averross, who is serving as the regent of the planet, when negotiations between Pyjal and Zerka Corporation kind of hit a snag. And the idea is that Pyjal is really, really remote. It stands to flourish, or so Zerka says, if a hyperlane could be opened there, but they kind of have to come to some sort of agreement, but they keep running into some issues. However, Rael thinks that Qui-Gon can help break the stalemate that's going on there because he's kind of a maverick. He thinks outside of the box. And so he orders Qui-Gon he doesn't order, he requests that Qui-Gon come to this planet. At about the same time, Qui-Gon is offered a seat on the Jedi Council when one of the other Jedi is essentially getting ready to retire because he doesn't feel like he can serve in that role any longer, which complicates an already difficult relationship that he's got going on with Obi-Wan at the time. So there's our setup. Rael Averross is the regent because the Princess Fanry has not yet become 14. And once she does, then she'll have her coronation and she'll be the queen and Rael can move on. But again, let's just do, 30, 60 seconds without diving into the details too much on this. What was your overall opinion of the book? Taxus, since you kind of been quiet for a while, we'll start with you.
Okay, hold on. Oh, Obi-Wan, that's the perfect way to end it. Okay, I'm done. I'm ready. I just got finished reading it. I think that I read a few reviews on this, and somebody kind of came out and said, like, they didn't identify with the characters at all. They felt like there was all this confusing political mumbo-jumbo that they didn't like Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon fighting with each other and stuff, and these other two characters that were thrown into it, they didn't really see the need for them and everything. And I didn't take that away at all, I gotta say. It wasn't the most stellar of books. And, to be honest with you, those prophecies, oh, man, they're just, I don't know, they could have been worded better.
We'll get to the prophecies in a bit, but
you know what I'm saying, though. That's my biggest problem that I had with the book, was the prophecies were kind of weird. We'll talk about that more, but
Okay. And Jay?
I actually love the prophecies, and I can't wait to talk about them. But but no, I went through this book twice and a half, I guess. The first time around, it was good. I mean, I really enjoyed getting a little bit more insight to, as the book suggests, Master and Apprentice, and kind of the relationship between Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. And it was kind of like, oh, okay, here we go again. We've got a young, almost queen. There's some slavery going on. There's this, and this. And it was kind of like almost a setup to the Phantom Menace in a deja vu kind of way, but in a prequel sort of way. So I didn't really get to see beyond that until I really went back into it a second time. And it was after listening to the Dooku audiobook that we just talked about. And so I appreciated it so much more the second time around. And I found so many more insights and nuances to the book that I actually would put it up there as one of my favorite books of the new canon.
Cool. I read most of this book on the way home from Celebration. And so it's been a while. And so when I was thinking about this book ahead of time of this conversation, I had to really kind of flip back through parts of it and go online and remind myself who some of the key players were and some of the events were. It's not that it was forgettable. It's just that it kind of got dense in parts. My overall thing about this was I felt like the first third took way too long to establish the scene. But once we got through that, so first half, we had a very interesting, compelling story in the second half of the book. But I kind of want to start the conversation by ignoring Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan for a second and talking about Rael Averross. So he is, again, Dooku's first apprentice. And when he's very much a contrarian. He's a bit of a maverick himself, like Qui-Gon, which is kind of interesting because Qui-Gon or Yoda makes a point of or I think Qui-Gon just may remember this later, that Yoda kind of pairs masters or Padawans up or encourages them when they're opposites, so that Obi-Wan was kind of a rebel himself until he got matched up with Qui-Gon, and then he became the strict by the rules type of a Padawan. And so Rael and Qui-Gon are these mavericks compared to Dooku, who was, although he broke a few rules to protect his attachment with his sister, he was kind of more along the straight and narrow on a day-to-day type of a basis. And so you kind of have this alternating generations of who's the rule follower and who's the maverick. But Rael, again, he's kind of a slob. He wears threadbare clothes. He's from an outer world. He came to the Jedi Order a little bit later in life, so he had an accent that he kept with him, mainly to kind of remind everyone that he was different. And he's fast and loose with some of the Jedi rules. He has an intimate relationship with a woman there on Pajal, and he justifies it by saying, we're not forming it, just taking care of needs. We're not forming an attachment. Yeah. So, did you guys like him?
Friends with benefits.
Taxus, you want to take this one first?
Yeah, I guess I liked him. I kind of imagined him with a Scottish accent or something, but No, I was going to say Claudia Gray, I was reading today, envisioned a character like Benjamin Bratt. Or an actor like Benjamin Bratt playing him, yeah. So there you go. Taxus, that's kind of how I envision him as well, is kind of either someone from the Highlands or someone from like the middle of Tennessee. Yeah. But go on. I'm sorry, go on. No, it's just, I liked him just fine. I thought it was kind of an interesting take. I thought it was, of course I didn't have the other story in mind at all. So, I just thought that he was kind of a little too far out of the norm, I guess, for the Order, I felt like he was kind of getting away with murder, so to speak, with a lot of things. And I kind of felt he was a little too comfortable with his station in life, especially when he kind of, in the very beginning, when Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan first meet him, and he's like trying to find clothes for them. So he barks at the servant girl. What's her name again? Katie? Katie. And he's like, you there, what's your name? Sort of like regally, you know what I mean? And it wasn't like kind at all, you know what I mean? So I don't know. I just kind of took that to be like, oh, this guy's kind of a jerk, you know. Plus the flagrant use of the term something a chicken does with an egg throughout the book, I felt was a little off-putting. You know, I was like, is that a Star Wars term?
Yeah, it's a colloquialism. I didn't think that either, but you know, it was, I think, there to demonstrate how different from the Jedi he was. But but Jay, what did you think of Rael?
I would have called it something different.
Well, you know, at first I thought he was really brash. He was just like, you get this idea, he's just dirty and he's scummy and, you know, who is this guy? Yeah. But oh man, I really came to love Rael. He's just, and the thing about him is that he's grounded in his beliefs, and you can just tell that he's got this huge heart. I mean, for him to take Fanry under his wing, and you know, and a lot of that also is just because of the fact that he had lost his own apprentice in a horrible way. And so he was kind of maybe making up for that in a lot of ways with Fanry. But you know, the whole thing that you were talking about, Dennis, with him, you know, meeting his needs, he's like, I'm not forming attachments. I'm just meeting my needs. You know, that's the Jedi way.
Brown chicken, brown
and
cow.
It just, well, you know, it just made me stop and think, oh my gosh, you know, so that is one way to interpret not forming attachments. And, you know, from a certain point of view, how does this perspective change from one person to the next? But he's definitely very cowboyish. He's kind of the, you know, I guess you could say the Han Solo of the Jedi in some ways, is kind of the feeling that I got from him. But you know, but ultimately he wanted to do good.
I think the thing that really hit me listening to your description about him is that he often gets too close to what he's involved with to look at things objectively, you know? And I think that's kind of, he kind of had the come to Ashla moment at the end of the entire story, you know, after he's, you know, kind of realized, you know, what happened. And it's sort of like the same thing, you know, that happened with him with Nim, with his first Padawan. So, yeah.
Yeah, for me, he's, I won't say love to hate. He's a character that I love to not really like. Because he's a great character. I think, you know, what was his former Padawan's name?
Nim.
Yeah, thank you. Like the rats in Nim. That's how I remembered it back at the time. But you know, okay, so a couple things. One, he's one of these guys who seems to want to have his cake and eat it too. He was a Jedi. He wanted to stand out from the Jedi, but he kind of wanted to be respected as a Jedi.
Yeah.
But then when he killed his Padawan, no matter how tragic it was, he was fooling himself into believing the way he was taking care of business on Pygel and looking after Fanry was not about making things up because of the way he handled Nim, that he wasn't going to fail Fanry the same way. And with that mindset he completely blinded himself to the realities there on Pygel, and led to this really crazy conclusion that we had, which I thought was great. But so he was a very well written character. It's just that, you know, I think Qui-Gon had looked up to Rael as a mentor,
sure,
because you know he was Qui-Gon's predecessor as a Padawan to Dooku, but then he was kind of having a hard time reconciling the way he felt about Rael over the course of the book.
Well, he's grown up, you know.
Yeah.
Hey, did the Jedi pay child support?
What's that?
Did the Jedi pay child support? Or
how would we possibly know that?
I don't know, but I have a feeling we could have found out in this book. Just saying. Some babies.
I see what you're going with there. Right. But yeah, Rael he reminds me of, we had a lot of good old boys around here, and I'm sure you guys do in Texas too. So, you know, he's one of those kind of brash guys, but has a good heart. But yeah, well said, Dennis, everything you said too. It was really interesting too to me how Rael introduced Qui-Gon to the prophecies in a way. And, you know, and he was actually kind of, you know, I don't want to say he was into the prophecies himself, but he he didn't really put a whole lot of stock in them necessarily, but he was open to them.
Yeah. Well, because Dooku was all hooked into him at the time.
Right. Yeah.
And there was the prophecy. When a Jedi tells another Jedi that there are prophecies, the other Jedi will start to think he believes in the prophecies.
Is that how it was written?
Kinda.
Okay.
All right.
Really clumsy.
So, what did you all think about Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon's relationship? I appreciated the fact that they kind of carried through. We saw some tension between Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan in The Phantom Menace, but it was nothing like what we saw in this book. They seemed ill-suited for each other frequently throughout all this. But it kind of got back to that lesson that Yoda had. He either puts together two people that are opposites in order to kind of pull them both back to the center, or later, like we see in Clone Wars, he puts Anakin and Ahsoka together because Anakin has to basically deal with another version of himself, and it causes him to try, to take on some more responsibility, act more responsible, and get an insight into what it is to look after a Padawan, and that he can't just go out there and be reckless. He has to think more about the consequences of his actions. Whereas Qui-Gon's the maverick, or Obi-Wan was a bit of a maverick. Qui-Gon, but he became much more rule follower quickly, and then but Qui-Gon kind of followed his own conscience. But they were frequently butting heads in this book. To some degree, I thought it was a bit too much. But what did you guys think?
I think it served its purpose in terms of kind of setting up the whole, especially in Phantom Menace when he says, "Don't defy the Council, Master, not again," and it just kind of goes back to, oh, okay, this is why he's saying all of this. But I just think that Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon were just and as you said, Yoda, he put Master and Apprentice together because if you're too much in your own comfort zone, then no one grows. Right. So you have to have a challenge, you have to have strife, you have to have, drama, as it were. But yeah, there were times where I thought, it's a little much, but they just think differently, and even with Obi-Wan kind of vocalizing, oh, why didn't I just, understand what he meant by the door? Well, he could have just said it, so there's a lot of that going on as well. But I think it kind of forces each one of them to dig a little bit of a deeper sense of who each other is too. But so yeah.
Well, I'd be like, oh gosh, Obi-Wan, will you give it up already? You know what I mean? He's almost acted like a jilted lover to a certain extent. But, one of the things in my head, I was trying to figure out, how many years was this before? How much younger was Obi-Wan here?
Well, he's 17 in this.
Okay. Yeah, and he's in his early 20s in The Phantom Menace. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess, like I said, somebody really had a problem with that when I was reading a review, and I think it all kind of just, it came back around to, like, there's reasons why a teacher sometimes doesn't show you certain things until a certain point in time, and that's one of the problems that Obi-Wan had to reconcile in his head. I think I didn't mind it so much because we do see how close of a unit they are together, later on. And I thought it was kind of good to see that they weren't always like magically, connected. You know what I mean? Like it was like kind of a little struggle for him. So, yeah, but they got it all figured out.
Well, I think it's interesting because, as you're speaking, I'm thinking about the whole lightsaber training. Is that kind of what you were alluding to? Yes. And, Obi-Wan was so frustrated because Qui-Gon wasn't advancing him, he didn't feel, through these different lightsaber forms, and he couldn't understand why and why he was being held back. And Qui-Gon he wasn't telling him why. And then it makes me think after, of course, again, listening to the Dooku novel, Jedi Lost, that Dooku wasn't initially told how he was going to be trained either, because Yoda basically sat there for an entire month on his rump and didn't even respond to Dooku until Dooku found ways to, so it's kind of like this passing down of things. But Obi-Wan definitely needed more, okay, this is what I want you to do. I need you to explain this to me. Just come right out and say what you want to say and tell me how you want to do it. I think he just appreciated that more. And he was 17. I mean, my kid is 17, and the whole time I was reading this, I was thinking to myself, gosh, I can see so much of Colby-Wan in Obi-Wan. It's almost eerie. Like, seriously, I'm not even saying that as a joke. No. I'm being quite honest when I say that.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, we're going to start running out of time really quickly here. So let's kind of move through a few things here. The climax of this book features the coronation ceremony where Obi-Wan has finally decided that Qui-Gon is not completely using his best judgment, and he goes to the council. He's made the representative of the Republic and the Jedi there on Paijal, and so he's going to sign this treaty on behalf of them, and they're going to get this hyperlane built. But Princess Fanry pulls a fast one on everyone, and she basically halts the whole thing and says that, you're all our interlopers. You've come in here. You're taking advantage of my world. I'm not going to stand for that anymore. And so there was this whole terrorist plot line that was going on here. And there was actually two different groups of terrorists that kind of gets wrapped up. We had some that were sabotaging things, others that were just kind of doing social disobedience type stuff. But so, I really like that twist. For me, we get awful lot of child rulers in Star Wars.
Sure.
I had a list of them, but I can't find it. But, of course, the biggest example is Padme Amidala. So, but here she is at 14, but she doesn't have any of Padme's wisdom. She's very impetuous. She's resented Rael's presence this entire time, even though it looked like they had a great relationship. And she becomes bloodthirsty. She's going to do whatever it takes to drive Zerka off the world. What did you all think about that twist?
Oh my gosh. I thought either she's really immature or she's almost very Palpatine in the way that she thinks, because how was it that this 14-year-old girl was able to sit back and basically play Rael, like you said, acting like he was her closest trusted person in her whole life, and then all of a sudden just go berserko on everybody. So, I don't know what her, I guess, breaking point was to do that. Was it her immaturity, or was she just crazy? I don't know.
Well, I think that there was a certain amount, if I remember correctly, that Katie was kind of whispering in her ear. You know what I mean? Like somehow she was an influence on her, to make her realize. I think she was even just, of herself, she just figured it out. Like, I'm not a puppet. I'm not somebody who can be controlled, And so I think she was kind of lashing out. I mean, she stabbed that guy, like, for crying out loud with the ceremonial sword. I gotta say, I saw it coming when they made it clear that the performance artists weren't the same as the terrorists, I was like,
see, I thought that was Zerka that was doing this to try and, push that, they could bring security and stability. That really, I was really surprised when I was Fanry.
I thought Zerka was too easy of a, you know what I mean? Like, I thought that would be kind of too easy. At first, at a certain point, I was thinking it was Rael, like he was kind of making his play or something, but, I mean, hey, Zerka's been mentioned. What other books have they been mentioned in? Is this the first time we really got a good in the new canon?
Well, they were a Legends component, and I know they came up in the Knights of the Old Republic, and they've been elsewhere, but I couldn't remember hearing of them in the current canon before.
Was it the one the book, Captain Phasma? Were they mentioned in that book? Like, was that the facility that, remember the leftover facilities?
I don't think so.
Okay. I was trying to remember if we had them or if this is the first time we heard mention of them now in this one. Because I like it. I mean, it's a cool story idea, It's a corporation that's older than the Republic. And, of course, you got clear issues with, their slaving people, which is something that, Fandry was also very upset about, She had good motives, I think, but she just, a little bloodthirsty in that whole thing.
Yeah. Well, Jay, I'm going to disappoint you. We're going to save the prophecies for another day because they take they're going to take way more time.
But please promise that we'll talk about them.
I prophesied this was going to happen.
But because we've only got a couple minutes left in this discussion, and I don't want to rush through these prophecies here. And I think we're going to pick up some more discussion on Master and Apprentice at a later date as well. But because, this book really was about Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, but there's things like the hunt on the Varactals and the racing the Varactals that we haven't even touched that I'd love to discuss at some point as well. So I think we're going to come back to this book. But before we go, let's just go around the table real quick, give a final thought and a grade on it, and I promise we'll set aside some time, probably on a Scoundrel special edition, to share some more thoughts about this book.
Well, for me, I like I said, I really enjoyed it more the second time around. So Scoundrels, if maybe it resonated with you the first time around that you read this book, because I know a lot of people that I spoke with were right off the bat were like, oh my gosh, they were all in. I needed a little bit more convincing. So listening to it a second time, going through it a second time really did solidify it for me. And yeah, I definitely do want to talk about all those other things that we said that we would, and the colon crystals and
the what?
The colon crystals. Whoa. The Kyber that is not Kyber kind of thing.
Yeah.
And our two pirates, so to speak, jewel thieves. I would love to talk more about them as well. But overall, I think it did a really good job of explaining a little bit more of the background, obviously, of Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, and also giving some more insight to Qui-Gon's sort of upbringing with Dooku, and bringing Rael Averross in as a different perspective as well, and just a little bit more into stuff that was going on with the Jedi Order, and perhaps why things happened the way that they did a little later on.
Mm-hmm. So do you want to give a grade to Jedi Lost and Master and Apprentice?
Yeah, Jedi Lost, I'm going to give that one an A. There's a lot about it that I really, really appreciated. And first time around, I would have given Master and Apprentice a B-, but I'm going to give it a solid A- this time. So A- for me.
Okay. Taxus?
I thought it was a fun book. The prophecies we'll talk about later, a little clunky for me. It just, to me, was just a book. I mean, it really didn't propel anything that we didn't know before, I did take note, like I said, about the first time we saw the actual wording of the prophecy that everybody talks about in later movies, because I think we talked about that before at some point. Do we actually know what the wording is? I thought Fandry was an interesting character. I thought Rael was kind of an interesting character. I'm going to go back and really slowly read the dirty parts.
They weren't that dirty. Don't get too excited.
Yeah,
here.
Not really.
Get my highlighter. So overall, I'm going to give it a B. It was a fun read. It doesn't really strike me in the whole pantheon of memorable standouts, I guess. Maybe if I had listened to the other book that, I don't know, maybe you guys should have released that as a book too. Just saying, because I probably would have read that, instead of trying to jump through hoops to download something and listen to it and do all that stuff.
It's available in the same place all the other audiobooks are on Audible.
Well, I don't know.
Okay. Well,
I give it an F now, though, just because of that.
Your grade is disqualified for not having actually consumed.
I'm disqualified.
You didn't do your homework.
Yeah. It's failed because they could not reach the masses, which is me.
Well, I don't know. I'm not going to blame them for not putting a radio drama out in print form to satisfy you. You're going to get that later this year, though. But as for me, I enjoyed them both quite a bit. It was, I think, a nice chunk of satisfying content in the radio drama and novel format. I'm overall, I think I've been a little bit happier this year with the books and stuff that have come out compared to what we got maybe last year and even the year before that. And so I feel like the level is just a bit better overall. And they're both solid stories. Jedi Lost for me is a good A- story. It's just radio drama is not my favorite format. I enjoyed this quite a bit, but there was a few times I was getting confused where if Taxus, this is where I will agree with you. If it was in a print format, a novel format, you probably would have had that additional exposition that would add just a little bit of clarity on this. But they had to sometimes resort to using some descriptive terms that I don't think always achieved what they wanted it to achieve. But fantastic performance all around by the cast. And I really loved getting the story of how Dooku left the Order and became Count Dooku. Master and Apprentice, I keep going back and forth on this one. I really, I thought the introductory scene with Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon when they're dealing with the gangsters was really quite good. I felt like it really bogged down for a while after that because those two, just when they started to make some progress, then they fell right back down the ladder and had to start over about, oh, he doesn't trust me or he doesn't want me as a Padawan and I'm a lousy teacher and why can't I get through to him? And it just, after the upteenth time of having that come up, I mean, I know that's the way people think. You get obsessed with those type of things. I was just ready to move on with the rest of the story. But that being said, I thought the conclusion was fantastic. The Varactyl hunting scene, which we didn't even get a chance to discuss here, which we will talk about on a Scoundrel Special Edition with the Prophecies, was a great action scene. There was several great action scenes in this book. And so for that reason, I'm having a hard time deciding between an A- and a B+. I'm just going to go with a B+ for now. I can always revise it upward later. But it's really good. I highly recommend it, and everyone should check that out. But Scoundrels, we want to get your thoughts. So, we'll be going over the ways to contact us here in just a bit. So email us, tweet at us, whatever your preferred method of communication. I understand that the Assessor Collector now has a pigeon roost. So send pigeons if you want.
They don't do well out vacuum though.
All right. Well, that'll do it for this week's Hyperthetical.
It's time for...
No. Silence Fools!
Well, we haven't had a Silence Fool segment for a few weeks because of our schedules, but I wanted to highlight several things that kind of came over social media recently. So first off, I wanted to give Rural Farm Boy on Twitter a shout out for sharing and recommending Taxus' discussion with Corey D. Williams and Monty Pittman with people looking for a recent interview with Corey D. And you did a good job on that, Taxus, by the way.
Thank
you. That was a fun Father's Day episode.
A lot of tension and release in that. Yeah.
Yeah, but Rural Farm Boy has been out there promoting our show quite a bit in the past week. So,
all right.
Yeah. Wanted to say,
well, here's a SQ pod farm animal for you.
Also, wanted to give a shout out to Neil Lowry, who's been championing us as positivity leaders lately on Twitter. We've gotten a lot of recognition for him, and he's always trying to promote the best of Star Wars. So thank you, Neil. And then, of course, Steven, or Squadron as he's known, over at Real Cool Depot, included episode 80, which was our discussion about the Vanity Fair coverage and our Knights of the Old Republic thoughts, in his top 5 podcasts from that week. That was a few weeks ago, but again, we haven't had a Silence Fool segment for a while, so
don't really remember what we talked about either. What was it? Good?
Yeah. Vanity Fair? Yeah, it was a great conversation.
Yeah, it was Vanity Fair.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I must have been
I got my first episode in my bag. So, because
yeah, mine still hasn't shown up.
Yours hasn't shown up. Your bag and your magazine, or just
the bag showed up, but the magazine has not.
Wait a minute,
really?
What episode?
That was episode 80.
No.
With the Vanity Fair, we were talking about how we subscribed. We both subscribed to Vanity Fair because you got the little free tote bag.
That's right. Yeah.
They pull the classic trick where they tell you can subscribe for internet only or internet and a print subscription for the same price.
Yeah.
So
I'm more of a Cosmo guy.
Right. But any rate, Steven liked that episode and included it in his top 5. So again, thanks to him.
Hey, Steven.
He's always getting the word out about all the best Star Wars podcasts. So, and then our friend we met at Star Wars Celebration, Micah, also known as at Star Wars Time on Twitter, has been sharing everything we do as he usually does. So again, thanks to him. And then
dude.
Yeah. And then Jay, Black Milk Clothing took notice of your inclusion of their stuff in the in their styles in the latest That's a Wizard from last month. And I think they left a note there in response to, I think you put it on Instagram and then it automatically shared it on Twitter. And they responded with a looking good and signed by Kristen over there.
Yes. So thanks, Kristen.
That was all just Twitter. Now, here's something I wanted to highlight from Discord. We were talking about the posters from The Rise of Skywalker and why one side has everything backwards, but we couldn't figure out why that was. And Taxus, you couldn't remember at the time.
I seem to remember explaining it in ungreat detail.
You seem to be having a delusion. But Day chimed in on Discord, and he's always there talking to us, and I really appreciate his feedback. But he explained that movie posters are reversed on the back sides because they are backlit, and if they weren't reversed, you would get a ghost image in viewing the poster. So, and he was running time, so he left a little note that he was going back to hit the podcast and running. So he interrupted his run just and the podcast just to go on and tell us that. But I
stopped exercise. My work here is done.
Day, you are awesome. Yeah, I'm so not on Discord right now. I'm a horrible person, but yeah, I've seen Day on there quite a bit as I've kind of dropped in, scrolled through, and then left. So thank you so much for your knowledge, Day, because that's very helpful.
You keep doing what you're doing,
and keep running. Don't listen to Taxus. Just keep running.
Yeah, listen to me. I run all the time and keep running. It's good for you. So. And of course, a special thanks to both Fantha Tracks and Jedi News for sharing all of our shows with their readers and audiences. I mean, they put every one of the episodes up on their websites. They always tweet them all out, and they have quite a big following. So I really do appreciate the exposure.
Yeah, that's cool.
And hi, Claire, over at Fantha Tracks.
All right. Well, it was a lot of shout outs to get to, but that will do it for this week.
So fast. Dennis.
Taxus.
Well, as I was looking at all these nice messages from all of our listeners and friends discussing Galaxy's Edge during Silence Fools,
Wait a minute. Nobody sent us any messages about Galaxy's Edge during Silence Fools.
That is very not pertinent at the time because their lack of messaging fueled my Funhouse dark side energy for Saber Clash.
Okay, well, Saber Clash. So something has struck a nerve with Taxus, and we all have to hear about it for the next few months. So take it away.
Thank you, Dennis. Scoundrels, if you're like me, and I'm sure you are, then you have been overwhelmed by the deluge of Galaxy's Edge pictures. Fascinating as it is to see hundreds of selfies of everyone invited to attend the grand opening in front of the Millennium Falcon full-scale replica, I began to experience an emotion that I can only describe as some sort of longing to be one of those fortunate ones, so that I too could have my base Falcon picture plastered all over this great internet land of ours. Whereas I'm sure my lack of invitation was a mere oversight, I cannot blame you listeners for the extreme FOMO I'm sure you are all still experiencing, curled up in a little fetal position, quietly whispering to yourselves, why? Why? I too FOMO'd really hard, especially after I figured out what that term meant, to stay hip and cool for the kids. But realizing how influential I am to you, gentle scoundrels, I picked myself up and devised a scheme, plan to join in the fun and make some easy cash. So, it is without further hesitation or ado that I announce that there is this thing that I am doing for you all in a way that will be appreciated and loved by so many that I cannot announce it fast enough right here in the form known as and hitherto called this segment of Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels, that is Saber Clash, that now I am compelled to disclose this plan to everyone gathered with their ear holes listening right now. Wait, what was I saying? Oh yes! It seems that I have acquired a traveling amusement park by a game of chance. And yes, I had to kill someone you know. I present to you Taxus Galaxy Sludge Land. Now you can be the first to experience all the fun on rides that are certified safe from the Haitian government's building inspector's stringent safety standards of safetiness. Of course, if I don't go to your town first, then you could be the second to experience said fun and safety. Are you tantalized? I know I am. Just think of all the fun you can have with my own brand of rides and games personally developed by me and a team of how you Americans say, crackhead mechanics? It's so much fun, you might wet your pants just listening to my description, so better push pause and get to a bathroom. Okay, first, all visitors get a crazy map that illustrates where all the fun can be had, and also waives all claims of liabilities. And feel free to dress however you like, as clothing is completely optional. There are rides galore! Come ride the Mine Train roller coaster. It stops in the middle of the mine to give all the riders a fun time digging for plutonium while under the watchful eye of armed guards. Better dig fast so you don't show too much hair loss for the funny pictures taken at the end of the ride. I can just imagine your faces. Or you can enjoy the euphoria of a near-death experience from an out-of-control spinning action on the Decapinatron. Be sure to get the fun t-shirt after that reads, "That could have been me." Your remaining friends will be so jelly. If you hate sand because it gets everywhere, meet its more evolved cousin and take a romp in the glass box. It's cutting-edge technology. And afterwards, you can cool off with misters that spray fragrant lemon water. But that's just the start of it. Just listen to these games. Test your accuracy and agility for prizes galore with the soon-to-be classic toss game, Frog in a Blender. Your kids will love playing at the Name That Smell booth, conveniently located near the porta potties. Speaking of surviving untold horrors, go visit my personal favorite, the Kiss of Death booth. All proceeds go to your hitman who hunts you for the rest of your stay. Great fun! Also, don't forget to get your picture with Millie the Falcon. It'll leave you feeling peckish, so stop off for some rotten candy and quench your thirst with grapefruit aid. It's so tangy. Also, to show how cool my park is, why not get a tattoo that not only marks your individuality, but also marks you as my property? Just pick a design off any of the helpful carnies I employ to give back to the community. Most of them are allowed to be around crowds, so I hope their probation officers aren't listening. All this is coming soon to an abandoned mall parking lot near you, so be sure to check the schedule. I know you hold my reputation as an influencer in high esteem. It's not easy to be so despised, I can assure you. But let me add an F in front of the U and become a funfluencer. I can assure and attest to you that I have personally tested all of these rides, games, and toilets, and came away a different person, and will never do them again. And so there's more fun for you, scoundrels! So book your plans now with a yearly payment plan that won't cost you an arm and a leg. Yet. Back to you, Dennis.
Sounds like you had a really great time.
And tetanus shot.
Mm-hmm. Ooh. Well, with that out of the way, that'll do it for this week's edition of Silence Fools. All right, well, this will about do it for episode 81, but before we go, as usual, tell Scoundrel Nation what you two have coming up this week.
Well, for me, you can find me right here on Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels. And we do have a new That's So Wizard coming out for your listening and shopping pleasure. And so Scoundrels, you'll definitely want to listen to that one because there's a lot of good stuff there. And you can always check out my archive blogs over at Coffee with Kenobi and my Core Worlds Couture Fashion Review blogs over there as well. Taxus, how about you?
Well, you can find me over on The Geek Supreme with Scott Murray, Jeff McGee, and Regina Davis. It's a little fun geek talk show, game show kind of thing. And, you know, I don't know. I'm going to go fix the toilet.
All right. You can find my recent comic reviews of Star Wars comics over on RetroZap. You can also find my comic discussion with Juggle J each month over on Jedi Journals. My wife Beth and I are talking Star Trek and Warp Trails, and we are just done a Picard preview from what we know about that, and we're looking to explore some other Star Trek content sometime soon. And you can find that exclusively on the RetroZap podcast feed. Scoundrels, thank you for listening and for your support. If you've enjoyed the show, this has been Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels, and we would love if you would take 1 minute to leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcast, especially Apple Podcasts, which really is the best place to leave a review. It helps out the most. On the other hand, if you didn't like this, well, I could do without a Vader Force joke. and late lack of faith or not, but feel free to give Taxus one. If you aren't already, please consider subscribing to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Have a friend interested in Star Wars? Well, tell them about our show and help them find it on their mobile device. Word of mouth is always the best way to help the Scoundrel Nation grow. Thanks to everyone that has been helping us spread the word on social media.
And speaking of social media, Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels can be followed on Twitter and Instagram at SQPod and liked on Facebook, where we are facebook.com/SQPod. If you want to follow Darth Taxus on Twitter, he is at Darth Taxus, Dennis is at DJKVER2, and I am at Joyce Krebs. Don't forget about our page on the RetroZap Discord server. We'll be there talking about novels, comics, and everything Star Wars. You can find links to that in our show notes and on our social media. You can reach us by email at sqpod@retrozap.com. We would love to hear your review of Jedi Lost and Master and Apprentice, but we welcome discussion and feedback of any kind. Emails, really good tweets, and iTunes reviews end up in Silence Fools. Again, our email address is sqpod@retrozap.com.
And we are a proud member of RetroZap.com's podcast network. Please check out RetroZap for other great shows, including the Superhero Suite featuring Jay and Josh, other Star Wars shows such as Kanata's Castle and Brews and Blasters, collecting shows like The Dork Lair, and other great shows like the Animated Cast, the Artcast, the Deucecast Movie Show, the Doomcast, Warp Trails, Techno Retro Dads, previously on Lost and We Know Nothing. Also be sure to check out our Scoundrels t-shirts on TeePublic. The link to our store is in the show notes, and all the bad boys are wearing them for Prophecy class.
All right. Thanks to Aaron Lay for our show logos and to James Volpe, the Sky Geek, for our The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly show logo. Special thanks to Mario and the Scoundrel players for lending us their talents.
And here's our disclaimer. Starship, Sabers, and Scoundrels is not endorsed, affiliated with, or sponsored by Lucasfilm Limited and or Disney. The show is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. All characters, music, and sounds are the intellectual property of their respective copyright holders. All else is the intellectual property of Starship, Sabers, and Scoundrels unless otherwise indicated.
Well, it's about that time. Any final thoughts?
No, wait. I have a vision. When a prophecy is spoken by someone named Taxus, a show which he is in with two others possibly named Janice and Day, shall end after he has spoken the prophecy in no uncertain or confusing way that the show could end without a prophecy being spoken, which it has just been spoken by the one named Taxus. Wow, that was really weird and cumbersome.
Yes.
Indeed. Well, that will do it for episode 81 of Starship, Sabers, and Scoundrels. Thanks for listening. Until next time, may the Force be with you.
The prophecy is fulfilled.
Jay?
I had it muted. I'm so sorry.
What do you do?
I had my microphone muted.
What are you doing?
I know. I'm sorry. Okay, I'll count myself back in 3, 2,